Because the Solana NFT marketplace is currently so fire hot, there are a number of trading strategies that can work well. And depending on your needs and your style and the amount of time you have, how much money you have, you will want to consider these different trading strategies and dive into more detail on how to actually execute on those. So NFT IQ here, and I'm going to give a brief overview of the different trading strategies. And in this playlist, which is the ultimate Solana buying guide for Q1 2022, I'm actually going to have specific videos about each of these techniques and how to actually do them. So this video is more about just the overview to help you decide which one's going to work for you. And there will be videos coming out throughout the rest of the week or already in the playlist so that you can find more detail on how to actually execute on these strategies. So let's discuss the different techniques that are available right now. Briefly, there's minting and flipping established projects, holding for passive income, and buying and holding NFTs. Mint and flip is by far the most popular right now. I think that this will lose popularity over time as people realize that the majority of people lose money with this technique and that it is difficult to pull off successfully and that the margins are pretty narrow. But maybe I'm wrong about that. And if you do your due diligence and you get some practice and you get good at doing this, it can be lucrative. The good thing is that minting fees are really low and there's not gas fees. So you don't have to have huge margins in order to make money. You don't have to cover $300 worth of gas fees like you do on Ethereum in order to turn a profit. You can just flip from like 0.33 Solana to 0.5 Solana or 0.7 Solana. And projects run up like that on day one all the time right now. So this is definitely a very feasible thing to do, and I'm going to have a more in-depth detail on how to do this. There are about 2 to 3 projects I've seen per day that get bullish at a minimum, sometimes more. And yeah, this can work if you have a ton of time to invest and you're willing to work with narrow margins and just kind of want to hustle and make some money to grow your wallet. For somebody who's more knowledgeable about the Solana market and Solana NFT ecosystem as a whole, flipping established projects can be really good. So if you've done a bunch of research about flipping Solana NFTs and you have a bunch of projects kind of on your radar, or you've gone through this playlist or other videos that I've made about Solana projects previously, and you've done a lot of research, it's possible to identify good, solid Solana NFT projects and watch their floor price day by day, because what happens is they tend to have an initial spike and then an initial plunge after the minting day. And then if it's a good project and not something that just dumps to zero, which does happen, but if it's a good project, the floor will stay like pretty flat and it will have minor dips of maybe 10, 20, 30%. And then it'll find the bottom and then go back up to kind of that average price point, maybe a little higher. So if you see that cycle happen a couple times and you feel confident and you're willing to be patient, if it does dip for a little longer than you expect, then you can try and buy that trough in the chart and sell once it returns to kind of that average price point. And I think that this is an underrated trading technique that can work for somebody who's very knowledgeable about Solana, and I will give some examples in a separate video. You can also buy NFTs and hold them for passive income as a way to, as a trading technique in Solana right now. There are gambling NFTs that pay out passive revenue shares where they have games, they collect money, like for example, DGen Coin Flip. It's a 50-50 coin flip game where people gamble their Solana, and that money goes into a pot. It's like 49% win rate, 50%, 51% win rate for the house, and then that 1% margin gets thrown into a pot, and they distribute that evenly to all their NFT holders every day, at least some portion of that pot. So DGen Coin Flip's kind of leading the pack here. I believe they've paid out like 6 Solana in the last month since they've launched, which is really cool to each one of their NFT holders. and the floor price on that is absolutely crazy, sitting at like 70 Solana or something. There are a bunch of other gambling NFTs. I'm sure I'll have a video about those at some point. But yeah, that's a possibility. There's also NFT projects that take royalties and they do floor sweeping to kind of stabilize the price. So you can kind of count on that to happen and keep things kind of stable for floor prices, or they issue utility tokens like we've seen on Ethereum, where they'll give you some kind of utility token for staking your NFT. Plenty of projects like that out here. And there are also projects where they have an IRL business that makes IRL money. And if you're a holder of their NFT, they actually take a percentage of their revenue and they pay it out to the holders. For example, Rad Rugs. If you hold a Rad Rug, they're doing auditing consulting for a bunch of NFTs in the space right now. That business model, they pay real Solana to Rad Rugs to get audited and certified. And then Rad Rugs, because they have an awesome business, they are taking a percentage of that money that they're making with their business and sending it back out to the holders. So that is really cool. And there are more and more projects that are going to be doing this. Last thing I'll mention are airdrops. Those can be valuable. Sometimes they're not so valuable. But yeah, that's another thing to consider. Here's another technique: buy and hold. And one thing I've noticed about Solana NFTs is the good projects take time to grow. A lot of good projects fly under the radar, where they have a strong team, they have a really good utility, they have interesting concepts for how they're gonna, grow their company. But for whatever reason, it takes time for the Solana community to really hone in and start to get some attention and grow that project and bring that floor price up. Or it might take some kind of impetus on behalf of the team, like launching a new feature or setting up staking or something like that for the floor price to actually start to spike. And what I've noticed on Solana with a number of projects is it takes time for this to happen. So if you're able to get in into a good project where you think they're going to have some kind of impetus for a price surge, then that can be a really, really good technique. And this is actually personally my favorite technique right now. So here's an example of an NFT that I will not name, but it is one that I hold, by the way. You may recognize this if you are a user of Soluminati, which is where I got this chart. But it had an initial pump up to 15 Solana. Then it kind of dipped and stayed flat for more than a month. So this was like pretty stagnant. I mean, you could have traded from like 5 Solana to 8 Solana and made 3 a couple times here, as I mentioned earlier. But if you were just going to stick this out, what happened was they announced a staking feature for this NFT sometime around here. Word got out in the community, and guess what? Floor price doubled overnight. And yeah, sitting on pretty good money on that, by the way. So that wraps up the overview of the different techniques. Again, check the playlist for more in-depth guides on each one of those, on how to actually execute and my tips and tricks for those. And the first one I'm going to be publishing is going to be the mint and flip for Solana NFTs. So I'll have that video once it's published here on this page. Thanks, everybody, and I will see you in the next video.